guys. Happy to be here. Everybody have a coffee and some donuts ready to go? Awesome. So what I want to talk about today is tangential content and how you can leverage non-branded content marketing for SEO objectives. So at my agency, Go Fish Digital, we've used this tactic a ton for our clients, and it's been really successful. So I want to today really define tangential content, walk you through the process that we use and have had a lot of success with, show you some examples, and my goal is that you leave here today with enough information to take this strategy and put it to work for your brand or for your clients. So very quickly, a little bit about me. Again, my name is Danielle Boone. I'm a project manager for Go Fish Digital. We are a full-service, award-winning digital marketing agency based out of Raleigh. So I'm thrilled to be at Confluence for the first time. I'm maybe even more thrilled to be drying out after the hurricane, so thanks for having me. Let's go ahead and dive right in. So when we think about content marketing traditionally, I think we associate it with these things. Basically, we're creating a piece of content that's targeted towards a certain audience, and we're hoping to drive some sort of action, whether it's a lead or brand engagement, brand loyalty, something like that. But what if we leverage the content that we're creating for a different set of objectives? So at Go Fish, we do a lot of technical SEO. And as anybody in the crowd knows who does SEO, high-quality backlinks can be one of the hardest, most challenging parts about doing SEO. And that's where tangential content comes in. So we use tangential content campaigns to solve that backlink problem and complement the technical SEO work that we're doing for our clients with really high-quality backlinks. So let's quickly back up and define tangential content before we get too far. So tangential content is related to, but it's not about the brand. There is some sort of a tie-in back to the brand, but it's very minimally branded, and what we're doing is really taking a few big steps back from typical content marketing topics and thinking about what's more widely interesting. So the goal we know is high-quality backlinks, and branded content is not going to be the way to get those high-quality backlinks. So we want to find something that's more widely appealing and widely interesting. Let's go ahead and take a look at a case study. So this example is for our client Versus Reviews. They're a review website, and they cover a lot of different topics. Travel is one of the topics that they cover with their reviews. So we kind of latched onto that idea of travel, and we created a content campaign where we figured out what is the most popular cocktail in every state. So we went to Google Trends, and for each state, we researched which cocktail gets the most searches in a certain period of time. And the results were actually pretty surprising in a lot of cases. One good example is in South Dakota, the most popular cocktail is Sex on the Beach. Who knew? And then other states were like completely predictable. So in Kentucky, the most popular cocktail was the mint julep, obviously. So we got all this great data. We created a really high-quality graphic to represent it. Our graphic designer designed each icon for each cocktail by hand, and we pitched it out. We pitched it out to regional sites, and we got pickup from some examples are here: the Baltimore Sun, Charlotte Observer, LA Times. And we also pitched it out to national websites and got pickup from sites like Food and Wine because of the cocktail tie-in. And just to be extra clear, when I'm saying that we got pickup or we got coverage, what I mean is that we've created this really interesting piece of content. We're pitching it out to journalists. They're finding it really interesting and thinking that it could be something that appeals to their audience. So they're either writing an article about it or they're incorporating it into an article that they're already writing. And then when they go to cite their source, they're saying, according to this research from versusreviews.com, and Versus Reviews is the anchor text for the link back to our website. So that's where we get the backlink, and that's where we get the SEO benefit. So obviously, this content campaign wasn't targeted at like the normal versus reviews reader or the normal publications that they might want to see their content on. It wasn't meant to drive any sort of action from a target audience. The main goal was getting backlinks. And as you can see, we got over 200 backlinks from this campaign. So it was a huge success and a very tangential topic, had nothing to do with reviews. So simple enough, right? How did we get there? I want to walk through the process with you so that you can really see step by step how we are creating these content pieces and pitching them out. There's 3 parts of the process here that we divided into. First is the brainstorm, where we're coming up with the idea, the topic. Second is production, where we're actually creating the piece of content. And then last is promotion, where we're pitching out to journalists and getting backlinks in return. So let's dive right in. As we go through the process, and we'll go into detail on the process, I want to use one case study throughout so that you can see one of these campaigns from beginning to end. And this is a great case study to use because it just was shortlisted for a US Search Award. So it was a big success and is being recognized with being shortlisted for that award. The client that we created this for was Homes.com. And if you're not familiar, Homes.com is a great website to visit if you are in the market to buy or rent a new home. They're, I think, the 5th largest real estate portal in the US. So let's start with the brainstorm. I am going to go into detail on the brainstorm because when we're creating a piece of tangential content, it's kind of a different process. You're thinking about your topics differently than you normally would for traditional content marketing. So I want to share some tips and tricks that we use to sort of think about these ideas differently during the brainstorm. So the first thing I'll say about the brainstorm is that you want to keep in mind that the end goal is backlinks. And so as you're thinking of ideas, start to picture what would the headlines be? What would a journalist write about with this? How would they be able to tell a story with this content? Next, again, you want to zoom out from your branded topics. You want to, so for Homes.com, for example, their typical target audience would be someone who's in the market for a new home or to rent a new home, and that's not who we're going to target. Maybe we're going to do a home ownership related topic, but it's going to be much more widely interesting. It's not just going to be targeted at people who are looking to buy something right now. This might seem a little bit obvious, but you want to collaborate on your brainstorm. You want to get multiple perspectives, and it's so important for tangential content campaigns to do this because we all consume our content in different places and in different ways, and you want to tap into what's being written about, what's really newsworthy right now. And so the more people that you can get together to brainstorm, the more perspectives and more ideas you're going to get. Speaking of which, you want to keep it current. You want to think about what topics are being written about right now that you could loop into and that you could capitalize on with your tangential content campaign. We do a lot of research going into brainstorms, and you should too. So a couple of ideas here. We use BuzzSumo to see what the best performing content has been for a certain industry or certain keyword. We use Google News to see what news stories are out there, what's in the news about a certain keyword. We follow and tap into the subreddits that are relevant for our client's industry or their brand, and we look at what's going viral on Reddit, what's getting upvoted, like what's getting a lot of conversation. And then one thing you want to do too is to make sure that you're looking at competitors. And maybe there's some content marketing that competitors are doing that you could maybe take to the next level or could just serve as inspiration for a really viral content campaign that you create that builds off of it. And then one of the last things I'll say about brainstorming is you want to make sure that there is a tie-in back to your brand. So we want it to be a very tangential topic, but just be aware it's possible to go too far in that direction. So make sure that you have a clear way of explaining what the tie-in is, why your brand created this content piece. There's got to be some sort of hook back to your brand. At GoFish, we do a lot of these content campaigns. We do a lot of brainstorms, and we've created a lot of resources actually on the topic of brainstorming. So I've got them here. I'm happy to share my slides, and you'll be able to access those resources and see some of our tricks and tips there. There are a few formats that we've seen work time and time again for our tangential content campaigns. So I want to give you an idea of what those are. Obviously, we always want to be creating something new and coming up with new creative ways to do this type of campaign. But these are sort of tried and true and could maybe be a good starting point, a good source of inspiration. So we saw the cocktail map. Up here, you see a beer map. This is a good example of something that performs well. Alcohol topics. It's not the right fit for every brand, but for whatever reason, journalists love to write about it and readers love to read about it. And I think we all love alcohol, most of us probably, so we get it. So alcohol can be a really great topic to cover in one way or another. Original data is great for tangential content because we're providing value to the journalists when we send them original data because we're giving them something original, new, something they can't find elsewhere. So that's going to be really attractive to a journalist when you pitch it out. We've also seen a couple of examples of maps already. So maps are a great tool to use. They're a great format. They often provide really surprising insights. Obviously, like, we know when we see a map, we're kind of interested to like look at our state and see what our result was or see what the top 10 or the worst 10 were. So these also let you pitch out to those local or regional websites and get links back, you know, kind of approaching them with like the state angle, and here's what the result for your state was. So maps are a great tool. Surveys are another great format. Surveys are a way to get original data, and we use surveys a lot because we can really mold it into what we want because we're coming up with the questions and it can really match the tangential topic that we want to cover. Timely topics are something that we're always on the lookout for. Bitcoin is a good example. Think about what you're seeing written about often and think about how you can take maybe a different angle on it, but capitalize and leverage all of the coverage that it's already getting. And then lastly, one of the formats that works really well and the topics that works really well is pop culture topics. So examples are The Bachelor, like you see here, Harry Potter, like CrossFit, things that are kind of cult status. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but the people who are writing about it and reading about it are a very captive audience. So look for opportunities to use those topics. Okay, so let's go back to our homes.com idea, and we brainstormed for this content campaign, and the idea that we landed on was the best and worst places to make money on Airbnb. The best and worst places to make money on Airbnb. So why did we land on this topic? Number one, it's going to be a map. We know that we're going to be able to pitch to local journalists, local newspapers, TV stations, and that they're going to find the content interesting. Second, it's universally interesting. It's not just talking to somebody who is in the market for a home right now. It's really appealing to all homeowners, even all potential homeowners in the future, so a much wider audience. The topicality was there, so the sharing economy, Airbnb, personal finance, these are all topics that are in the news a ton right now, so we knew that they would be written about a lot. And lastly, we had the end in mind. We knew that there would probably be some potentially very surprising headlines and newsworthy insights that would come out of this content campaign. So now we move into the production phase of our content campaign. Now that we have our great idea, we're going to get the data, we're going to analyze the insights, we're going to create some graphics, and we give the production part of the process about 6 weeks. So it's definitely a long process. The most important thing that I can say about the production phase is that quality is hugely important. So we're providing actual value to journalists with this content piece, and that's why they're going to organically link back to our site. So this is not the opportunity or the time to cut corners. So to give you some idea of how we went about finding this data and the production process for the homes.com example was First, we made a list of the top 75 metro areas in the US. Then we went to the National Association of Realtors website, and we found the median home price for each of those 75 cities. And we made some assumptions about like down payment and interest rates, things like that. And we calculated things like what's the daily cost of home ownership and what's the average monthly mortgage payment. And then we went to Airbnb. And for those same 75 cities, we pulled the average cost of a nightly rental on Airbnb. So obviously, like, that's a very manual process. It's time consuming, but it's worth it because the information that we get out of it, nobody has and nobody's really reported on before. So it's very original and it's gonna be really appealing to journalists. As you go through the production phase of the process, just make sure that you can really confidently stand behind your methodology and the data that you're gathering. So know that journalists could follow up and ask for clarification on, like, what was your methodology? What was your data source here? Make sure that you're consistent and accurate in how you're pulling data. Make sure that, like, if you're doing a survey, there's enough respondents in that survey to be a reliable piece of data. So we've run all of our data. We have all of these numbers. Now we want to find those newsworthy insights that we're actually going to pitch out to journalists. And how we do this is pretty simple. We just sort of run the numbers every which way and see what stands out and kind of comes to the top as surprising. So a couple of examples of the insights that we found for Homes.com. First, we ran the numbers to see how many days would you have to rent your home on Airbnb to then pay off your mortgage for the whole month. And we found that, as you can see here, Akron, Ohio and Cleveland, Ohio, 4 days. You can rent your home on Airbnb for 4 days, and you've paid off your mortgage for the whole month on average. And then we ran the numbers a different way to see, on a daily basis, what are the most profitable and least profitable places to rent your home on Airbnb. And we found that Virginia Beach, Virginia is the most profitable place in the US to rent your home on Airbnb. And then we found that Denver, Colorado is the least profitable place. So obviously some really surprising insights there, and we ran the numbers a few other ways as well. Now that we have all these insights, we want to create some sort of visual to summarize the data and really clearly communicate our findings. So our graphic designers created a few graphics to show, the top 10 cities, the worst 10 cities. These are also worth putting some time and an effort into because oftentimes journalists use them in the article that they write about the content piece. You'll also use the graphics when you post the piece of content to your site. So they're worth, putting some effort into and creating something that's really nice looking and summarizes the data nicely. All right, so we have our content piece. Now we're ready to promote it. And this is, in this phase, we give about 6 weeks to promotion as well. And I'll go ahead and tell you how the Homes.com campaign performed. It was very successful. So we pitched out to local sites because of all those really interesting results that we found for places like Akron and Virginia Beach and Denver. And we also pitched out to websites that cover topics like real estate or finance, more national websites. And we got links back from them as well. We ended up with 42 pieces of coverage. 38 of those links were followed. 12 of the links had a domain authority of 70 or higher, and those included Forbes and MSN. So a huge win. So how did we get there? The first thing here is we want to make sure that we are letting the insights, those really interesting headline-worthy insights, drive the promotion. Don't sell yourself short by just thinking about your typical audience and what they're interested in, or the typical placements where you'd like to see your brand covered. Look at the data from all angles and really maximize how many different ways this could be interesting and how this could be newsworthy, all the different audiences that would like to see this information. We do a lot of research about the journalists that we're pitching to. We want to pitch the right insights to the right journalists so that they immediately see value in the content piece that we've created and want to pick it up. So we know, like, what's this writer's normal beat? What have they written about in the past? And we tailor our pitch emails to that writer. Obviously, journalists get like hundreds of pitch emails every day, so we want to make ours stand out. We use eye-catching subject lines. you'll see this is an example of a pitch email. We keep it pretty short and direct, and we immediately convey value. We go ahead and give them all of the most interesting stats. We give them a link to the graphics that we created. We offer to let them have the raw data if they want that. And the most important thing that we don't do is we don't ask for a link. So this is organic coverage. We're actually providing value to this journalist, and asking for a link is just going to sort of sour this pitch email, and it's going to turn the journalist off. Just know that the journalist, when they're citing their source, they're probably going to link back to the site. It's almost all the time they will. If they don't, you can always follow up and ask for a link. If you're creating a content piece that is specific to a certain event, like maybe the start of the NFL football season, make sure that you're ready to pitch when, or even before, coverage is at its peak. So when coverage for that is done, it's done, and you want to make sure that you don't miss coverage because you had timed things wrong. Conversely, if you're not timing it up to a specific event, know that sometimes journalists take maybe even a few months to find the perfect fit to use your content piece. So be patient for that and keep your eyes open for those links to come through and for the mentions to come through. So the content piece, once it's created, it's gonna live on your site. So on our clients' sites, we either create like a landing page or we put it on their blog, but wait to do that until you've gotten a few pieces of coverage, because that lets you pitch it out, especially to your highest priority writers, as an exclusive, and that just motivates them even more to cover it and to cover it quickly. We treat the promotion phase a lot like a PR campaign. So we're doing things like tracking open rates. We know which sites tend to syndicate, because that means that one good link becomes like 20 good links, and that's just smart. And whenever possible, we're forming ongoing relationships with journalists for future content campaigns. And then the last part of promotion is promoting your content piece on social media. So once you've gotten some links and you've got the piece live on your site, go ahead and blast it out to your top social channels for your brand, because your audience there is going to be interested in it too. Obviously, it's a widely interesting topic, so leverage that and get some additional site visits for it by posting it to your social media. So we've now defined tangential content. We know what our objectives are. We've seen the process from beginning to end, and we've seen some case studies. And I imagine that a few of you are still kind of thinking of some objections that you're going to hear from your clients or from your boss when you take this idea back to the office. And I know that because we've heard all of them, and I totally get it. So to help with that, I'm going to show you a few more examples just so you have a little bit more information and examples to see of how well this tactic works in a few different scenarios. So the first example is Elite Fixtures. Elite Fixtures is an e-commerce site. They sell light fixtures and other types of home goods. And so we kind of latched on to that idea of electricity, light fixtures, and we looked at how much electricity usage would be required to mine 1 Bitcoin in 115 different countries. So we then created, with the information, some graphics, including this map, and we had huge success with this. You can see you got 83 pieces of coverage. What we think really stood out about this was that it took a very maybe even saturated topic in the news and had a completely unique angle on it. And it made the concept or the topic of cryptocurrency, which is pretty complex, a little bit more digestible. Obviously, this was a very tangential topic. Like, this was not written and created for that typical Elite Fixture site visitor who's like remodeling their home. But we can see how much of a boost this would give Elite Fixtures for their website and their SEO. We got links from the Bloomberg example is here, Fortune, CNBC, MarketWatch, like really huge sites, and not their typical placements or not their typical audience. The next example is Caprelo. So Caprelo is a global mobility management company. Basically, like, they're B2B. They're trying to help companies relocate employees. So we took that idea of relocation, that was our tie-in, and we paired it up with a very timely event, the 2018 Winter Olympics. We researched all 3,000 of the athletes from the 2018 Olympics, and we found where were they born and what country were they competing for. And from there, we were able to pull out insights about non-native athletes. So for example, the US had 37 athletes competing who were born in the US, but competing for a different country. This is a good example where timing is everything. So we pitched this out at the perfect time, kind of at peak coverage, and going into peak coverage so that we got pickup on CNN, Yahoo Sports, and ESPN during the Olympics. So this was a huge win, 55 pieces of coverage total with a 57 average domain authority. And then the last example I want to show you, we've seen a lot of data and research-heavy campaigns. This is different. This is a very creative campaign, and I wanted to show you this just to give you an idea of how many different forms this can take, this idea of tangential content. So this client is Simple Thrifty Living. They're a financial website, and one of the topics that they talk about related to finances is careers. Now, we've all seen the renderings of Disney princesses imagined as this or that. We took that idea and kind of crossed it with the women's empowerment movement, and we reimagined each Disney princess in an empowered career role. Usually these roles were traditionally male-dominated. So it was a great tie-in to all that coverage late last year of women's empowerment. And we took all of the details about the movie and the princess's life. We wrote really creative and thorough descriptions of why that princess is in this career role. Our graphic designer illustrated each princess in her role by hand. It took 3 months to complete that, so it was very time-consuming. And the response that we got was huge. So we got over 125 pieces of coverage. The average domain authority was 60. And it was very wide-ranging. It was Business Insider, Pop Sugar. It was on TV, on Good Morning America and ABC News. It was huge. It was probably one of the most successful campaigns that we've ever done. And it was very tangential. It was very creative. This is not something that you would typically find on the Simple Thrifty Living website, but it was a huge boost to this company's SEO and their backlink profile. So I hope that gives you a good idea of tangential content, a few examples to go off of, and an idea of the process. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have.